everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Path. I'm your host, Jim Lee. I'm super excited to have you with us today. The podcast is all about an investor's journey. Whether it's not just mainly the highlights that we're going to be covering, it's the raw and real path that an investor must take to achieve the vision they have in their dreams. And if you're a first-time investor or a seasoned pro, we're going to talk about the wins, the losses, the lesson, and what it takes to really build a real estate business. Today, I have a very special guest, Carmine. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Carmine and I met at a real estate meetup called ITI, Investor to Investor. He came to educate us about social media and luxury flipping. And that's how I met Carmine, because I started my own real estate meetup, ITI second chapter in City of Industry. So it was such a pleasure to learn from Carmine. And can you give us a little bit about your background, how you got started?
Sure. So I've been in the hospitality industry, retail industry, my whole life. So sales, let's just call it. I was born third generation into the restaurant business. So when I graduated college, I stepped into that because it felt like that was the organic thing to do for me, because I grew up in it. The whole time I was in college, and then shortly after in my 20s, I was doing landscape and interior design as a hobby because it was a passion of mine. Never did I think I could make it a career. So I was working the restaurants. I opened up a second location, both in Pasadena, and I ran them successfully for close to 20 years, 15 to 20 years. And in that time, I grew very tired of it. I was very discouraged because I wasn't happy. The money was there, so it was like the golden handcuffs, right? But I wasn't doing what I was passionate about. And I always loved design and I loved real estate. And so I tried to figure out how could I loop all of my passions into one career. And so I decided the only way to do this, and I was when I actually did it, I was 38 years old. But this started the process around 35. Because I thought if I turn 40 and I'm still doing the restaurants, I'm going to end it. Like I just can't do it. I can't do it anymore. So I liquidated both restaurants. I sold them. And I even sold my house that I currently was living in. It was my home that my daughter was born in. I had it for 15 years. I loved that house. But I knew that I had to get a clean start, and I wanted to have enough capital behind me to where I wouldn't have to borrow money from anyone. So I liquidated those three assets and I started studying for real estate. And in the meantime, I started kind of reacquainting myself a little bit heavier with my design that I was doing. And I would do design, like I said, as a hobby for friends, family members. I did it and I get paid for it, but I never thought I could actually make a career out of this. And then I started, this is kind of when, like early 2000s, when the flipping started becoming a really big thing. And I kind of had my eye on it, but I didn't want to do these really quick turn and burn cookie cutter flips. I wanted to do something special. And I wanted to design it, and I wanted to treat it like you would from a design standpoint rather than a construction standpoint. And I started to get these old homes throughout Pasadena, South Pasadena, Altadena. And these homes were historic just by virtue of how old they were, because I like to work on old properties. I like to work on historic properties. If somebody came to me and said, I have this house that was built in 1985 or 1990, and I think it would be a great flip, I would say not for me. It could be a good flip for someone else, but not for me. I don't touch anything after like 1965, maybe 1970, like a postmodern. But after that, I don't really touch them. There's not enough in it that's interesting enough for me. And those houses to me were so ugly that you're just trying to make an ugly house look pretty. And it's like putting lipstick on a pig, and I can't do it. So I started to save these old homes that were historic, but not protected by the historic society. So like the 8 districts were not protecting them. So otherwise they could have been bought by someone, torn down, and a brand new house built. So I started becoming my mission to save these little houses one at a time. And then those houses started to turn into bigger houses and bigger houses. And so about 2 years into the process, I realized that I was paying an agent a commission to help me buy the house so that I could renovate it and sell it, i.e. flip it, and then pay them commission on the back end. So I thought, why am I not getting my real estate license so that I can actually keep the commission, put it into the project, and it's a much larger win that way. So I went ahead and got my real estate license because I got out of the business and I started studying for my real estate career, but I didn't really think, once I started flipping, I was like, ooh, that immediate high, that immediate endorphin rush, that immediate cash flow. I was like, well, that's nice. I like this. So I kind of shelved the real estate idea in the beginning. But then after a while, I thought, this is silly. Like, I need to get my license at the very least so that I can buy and sell my own homes. And it started to take off. It started to pick up momentum. And it was like a family member or a friend would refer me to someone else. And then all of a sudden, the real estate business started taking off. The first year I was licensed, I did not do one sale. I did only leases. I was with Engel and Vogler in Beverly Hills because that's where I thought I needed to be, which was way off base. And I spent a year there. I learned a lot, but all I did was leases. So I ended up moving back to Pasadena and I landed at Sotheby's here in Pasadena. And in that year, which was the second year of my real estate career, I ended up landing in the top 10% of the real estate agents in sales and volume in Pasadena because I tapped back into my community. My businesses were here for 20 years. People knew me. They knew my name. And so I just needed to tap into that and it worked. And so that's kind of how the synergy happened with the flipping and the real estate. And then it evolved much more over the years to now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. So much to unpack there.
Yes.
So there's a couple things, two things I want to ask you. So the period where you were golden handcuff, right? You had those two restaurant businesses. You were very successful. What did you go through? What type of course or epiphany, whatever it might be, what type of mindset did you need to overcome to finally transition out of that stage of your life? Because I personally resonate with this, where I worked at a W-2 job for 7 years. I always knew I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship. I see my dad, he's an entrepreneur. I look up to him, but I just never developed the confidence to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? It's stepping out of my shell and take on this entrepreneurship. And not until my last W-2 where I made a decision to work for a startup, learn everything I can from that startup, and that way I can start building my own business once I get out of it. And so that's finally what gave me the courage, that leap of faith to believe in myself that I can do this. What was the mindset you had to overcome in that period? And same goes to, just doing these projects, right, where people are running away from those type of deals, like historical building. I've heard a lot of nightmares, flippers who have done these flips in Pasadena. They're like, never again. It took me way too long, holding costs, etc., etc.
Yeah.
When everyone's running away from the challenge, you run at the challenge. I love that. So, what's your mindset behind that, please?
Well, so I'll address that question, and then we can go back to what was the kind of the catalyst. But I think for me, I fall into a niche that you said that most people try to avoid because it's that money pit kind of mentality, right? You're getting a 1920 craftsman, let's say, that has been vacant for 25 years. I'm using an example of one that I worked on.
Perfect.
Yeah. The only people that were living in this house for the past 25 years was a family of raccoons. It was in South Pasadena, in the heart of the city. It was built in 1920, and it was on El Centro, which was a stone's throw away from Trader Joe's, right 1 block south of Mission, in the heart of the city. And this house wasn't being protected. And a wholesaler got a hold of it and called me and said, hey, I have this property. Would you want to buy it and flip it? The worse it looks, the more attractive it is to me. So when I walk in and the ceiling, there's a hole in it, literally, like I'm standing there and I'm looking at sky, like that to me, it's exciting for me. Like to me, that's more interesting. I don't want to go, trust me, there are times when I've gone in and I just take all the ugly cosmetic stuff off and I resurface it. Those are a gift from God. Those are easy. We all wish we could do those. But there's no challenge there. It is easy, and I like a challenge. I like to reformat floor plans. I like to find old historic details that have been hidden or maybe layered over and refurbish them. And so we found windows that have been drywalled over, like old, beautiful, double-hung windows that are original that we bring back to life, and we have our carpenters go in and we refurbish them. So I really believe that there is a harmony that exists between something modern and something traditional, that when you blend those two elements together, it's the best of both worlds. And that's what I love to do. I love to take an old home and work with the bones and bring it back to its glory days, but then also pull in all of the modern amenities that we need to function and work in our daily life and society. We can't live with these little tiny closets anymore that the people who built these houses in the 20s, who were migrating over from the East Coast for 3 months with the clothes that they could put in their horse and carriage in this closet. That doesn't make any sense anymore. We're all maximalists and extremists. We have a ton of shit. So it's like we have to have places to store it. So it's stuff like that. But that's really, and like you said, a lot of people walk in and they see these houses and they're like, oh my God, there's no way. And I walk in and I'm like, where do I write the check? And so there's a beauty in that because I don't have as much competition. And I also come from a restorative background. So I can walk through a house and I can eyeball it in one walkthrough and I can pretty much gauge how much I have to spend to repair this house. A lot of people don't have that. They have to bring in all these other trades and have them look around. Oh, how much is it going to cost for me to do all these windows? Well, what if I want to, repurpose or refurbish the alabaster or the tile, around the fireplace that's been there forever? It's stuff like that where I find it so much more interesting. I can't flip, and I also don't do modern installations. Like I don't do from a design perspective. If you said to me, I want you to design this modern concrete square in West Hollywood, I would say, let me refer you to another designer. That's not me. Yeah. There's no, and I hate to say this, sorry guys, there's just no soul. There's no soul in that stuff. And so for me, I can't work in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you touched upon really good stuff. Focus on your zone of genius, right?
Yes.
And I feel like you're able to locate and operate in it. A lot of us, it takes us a while to really figure that part out. What is our strength? What is something that we can do that it provides fulfillment and it's part of my passion, right? It's not, I don't think of it as work. So how long did it take you to figure that out? Or did you figure it out pretty at a young age? Yeah, I love, designing homes, landscaping. I know this is my purpose. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
I think I started to have interest in real estate and design when I was probably in high school. And then when I was in college, like my friends because I went to USC, I stayed in LA. I would have friends moving into the area and they'd be like, oh, I need to find an apartment. And I'm like, well, what kind of apartment do you want to find? And I'd literally find out like how much they wanted to spend, what areas they wanted to be in. And I would literally find them houses or apartments to rent, drive around. Like I found it exciting and interesting, where most people would be like, why would you waste your time doing that? And then obviously this was I'm dating myself, but we didn't have our cell phone right there. We couldn't just pull up Zillow or, you had to actually get on foot and drive around. So, and then when I was in college, I took a design class just for fun, like as an elective. And then that's when I really realized, I was like, oh, this is where I need to be. Although I never went to school and got a degree for design, it was all self-taught. And my parents said I was doing stuff with design since I was like 5 years old, rearranging the furniture in the house, painting stuff, like constantly changing things because I would get bored. So, and then there was a quick story that I'll tell you, which was the reason why I got into the business that I'm in. As I mentioned, I had the golden handcuffs. I was working 75 to 80 hours a week doing the restaurant business, managing over 100 different people between both restaurants. It was a lot and exhausting. I also had a daughter who was a baby all the way up until she was about 8 at the time. And I was divorced. And so I was kind of a single dad to some degree. And I just didn't want the same life for my daughter that I had with my family when I was growing up, because I never saw my parents. They were always working. And I remember reading a story about Lucille Ball. And what it was in a nutshell was that Lucille Ball was in her mid-30s and she was too beautiful to be taken seriously as a comedian, and she was too funny and quirky to be taken seriously as a beautiful model or actress. She missed her best friend who lived across the country because she moved to LA to try to make it work, and her husband was cheating on her. So at 38 years old, she decided to write her own story, and she sat and wrote out a script and her play information on this storyline, and she created this idea where she could work with her husband and keep an eye on him, work with her best friend and be around her all the time, and be the person that she wanted to be and do what she wanted to do. And she created the I Love Lucy show. And that was it at 38 years old. So that was the reason why I made the change at 38. Because I thought, if she can do this at 38 years old and make a big change like that, I can do the same thing. And so that was really what pushed me into getting out of the business I was in and diving into what I felt passionate about.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just having a vision. Did you actually write it down?
I did.
Yeah.
I believe in manifestation.
Okay.
I think that, as human beings, we tell ourselves things over and over again, whether it's positive or negative, right? Mm-hmm. Especially a lot of our own self-talk is negative. It's just inevitable, mm-hmm. right? We're not really waking up in the morning and going, encouraging yourself every day. It's more like, oh, what am I lacking? What's missing? What bills do I have to pay? All of the stress, all the anxiety, right? We focus and focus and focus on the negative. But I really think that, and then all of a sudden, we are what we are telling ourselves, right? Years of that neglect on ourselves and years of telling ourselves these negative things, we start to become that. So when you manifest and you actually write down something over and over and over and over again until you start believing it, then things start to happen. And that's kind of been my mindset in a lot of transitional times in my life, because I love change. I love change. Like, you tell me you have an opportunity for me to get up and move to France right now, because in Paris I'm going to have this incredible opportunity. I'd be like, let's go. Like, let's check it out. So I'm all about change. And I think that with that comes a lot of opportunity to manifest goals and to make some differences. And I think that that's important, especially with people who do what we do, because there isn't just a formula. People think, oh, flipping is a formula. X, Y equals Z. No, it's not. That formula doesn't work in every single demographic. It might work in Tustin for that real estate in Tustin, but what works in Tustin is not going to work in Bakersfield. What works in Bakersfield is not going to work in Palm Springs. And what works in Palm Springs is not going to work in Pasadena. So you have to understand your environment. You have to understand the demographic. There's just so much involved that I think people don't realize. But I think it starts with that positive self-outlook in trying to get successful in this. Does that make sense?
It does, totally. It's so brilliant. I love the nuggets you just shared. So I 100% relate to that in terms of just manifesting, writing things down, having a vision. 5 years, 10 years down the road. And what I really like about what you said is you embrace change. So that's huge. That's definitely the right mindset to have in terms of just, if you're always looking to level up, always looking to improve in any aspect of your life, you always have to try new things, right? Mm-hmm. You always have to explore, doing this, doing that. Hey, does this work for me? Can I continue on and build on top of this if I try this? So it's all about change, right? And to go back to embracing change, what are the biggest changes that you've gone through in life, whether it's in the past or currently?
Oh boy, that's a big question. I've gone through a lot of changes. If you look at just my real estate career, I started at Engel & Vogler. I went to Sotheby's. From Sotheby's, I went to Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway, I went to Compass. Compass, I went to the agency. That only happened because I got bored. Truly. I was like, okay. I'm like, I've done it. I'm in the top 1% of this office, which is amazing. And I'm so proud and I'm so grateful. But now I think it's time to try it elsewhere, and move that dial somewhere else and have that experience. All the brokerages were great. I could probably say positive and negative about every one of them because anyone could. But my managers were all wonderful. I was treated very well. I left on my own accord only because, like I said, I just needed some change. Also, there were some great offers that were coming my way, so it was also like, I can't really turn this down. From the flipping standpoint, oh gosh, talk about change. I mean, it's a constant change barometer, right? The one thing I will say is I think people have to understand that flipping is not, there's no predictability in flipping, right? Everything is, you can't predict it. So there are too many factors that are out there that can change at any moment, right? So I tell the people who I mentor who flip, stop getting caught up on what isn't going right, or if something isn't available, or something doesn't deliver, or you can't open up that wall to accommodate the beam that you want to. You can't open up that wall to accommodate the beam you want to because the universe is telling you not to open up that wall. Stop. It's like if you miss the plane by a few minutes, in my opinion, you let that plane go and you get the next one. There's a reason why you missed that plane. Don't push yourself to get on that plane. Like, that's the same thing with flipping. If the tub you want to fit in there doesn't fit, go with it. There's a reason why. If the tile you want to put on your backsplash in your kitchen isn't in stock, that's okay. It's not meant to be. Go with another one. I have so many people, they get so worked up and so pissed off and so angry and so bent out of shape, like, this happened and that happened. I'm like, why is that a bad thing? You go with it. There's a reason why these things aren't happening. And sure enough, so many times my clients will call me and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I couldn't put that tough shed in the backyard because the person who wanted to buy the house wanted to put a jacuzzi there. And it was perfect because she wouldn't have been able to see that she could put a jacuzzi there if I would have put that tough shed there. It's stuff like that, Mm-hmm. And so I always say, you just got to roll with it. Go with it. There's a reason why the energy's shifting and things are moving around. And go with it. And it's when you start pushing back, you start fighting and pushing against the grain and making these waters rough, that's when things start to fall apart. Yeah, you got to go with the flow.
No, I resonate with that so well. But in terms of relationship, right? I feel like what he's just shared, that same concept. When I tell my friend, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that," giving advice, recommendation. But I often find that the more I push, the more they resist, like you said, right? And I learned the hard way, just go with it. Go with the flow. Maybe they're just not ready. They're not taking this serious. So it could just be many factors. It's out of my control. I can only control what.
Correct. And the thing that you have to understand too is what the plan is. No one else does. So in your head what your kitchen's supposed to look like. What your living room's supposed to look like. What the backyard's supposed to look like. If it changes, no one knows except for you. So as long as you shut your mouth and you don't tell everybody, oh, I wanted to do this and I couldn't, just shut. I always tell my clients too, shut up. You talk too much. Don't share. There's a lot of power in silence. And so you just don't talk about it. Don't talk about how much you invested, because that's the first question that people want to know. How much did you spend? That's none of your business. That's my answer. Sorry, but that's really just for me to know. But I appreciate you asking. Thank you. And I leave it there. What possible benefit is it to the other person by me telling them how much I invested in the project? The only reason why they want to know is, can I do the same thing? Is that something that I could pull off? Which I want to help other people. But I also get tremendous discounts just by virtue of my brand partnerships and the relationships I have. So it's unfair to me to tell somebody like you or someone else who may not have, and I don't know if you do or not, but who may not have those in their back pocket, how much I spent, because it's not realistic. I mean, for example, I just flipped a 1930s Spanish revival in South Pasadena, and I had a tile company give me all the tile. They were like, as long as you can do some posts for us on social media, we'll give you all your tile. Saved me $25,000 easy. So, but I don't share that with anyone because when I do an installation, it's a high design level. So people immediately think, this guy spent a ton of money, which I do, but I don't spend quite as much as people think I do. And they don't need to know that. Yeah, except now you'll do. So.
Yeah, I mean, these are the relationships you build over time, and that's. It's up to you whether you want to share with the world. I resonate with this in different ways. Where I give a speech in front of the real estate meetup I host. I practice, I memorize somewhat before I give the speech, and sometimes I miss certain parts of the speech, and I'm pretty hard on myself, and I'm like, oh, I screw that all up. But then for some reason, my friends come up to me, and they're like, oh, your speech is so amazing, because like you said, no one knows.
No one knows. We're the hardest on ourselves.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that, we forgot an answer, or nobody knows that oh shoot, I didn't put the toilet paper holder in that bathroom. Nobody knows. We know, but nobody else does. So, and I'm guilty of it just as much as anyone else, to be honest with you. I have to remind myself, okay, relax. You're stressing out over this. I'm also a perfectionist, and I'm kind of OCD as the day is long. So the little details are very important to me, but I also have to tell myself you can't get hung up on that because, like I said, nobody knows. So, yeah.
And so you have a mentor program. Do you just through social media. Let's talk about a little bit about that because you're pretty. You got a pretty good big following. And was it through social media that you started to track flippers and that's?
Yeah, I do. So I was mentoring folks to flip for years, and it was very selective. Most of these people came from a design background, and they wanted to try to do what I was doing. So, for instance, I have a client who was an interior designer for private jets. The people who tell me, "Oh, I want to sell, 4 or 5 houses a year," which is great, but that's not the agent I want to work with. I want to work with the agent who's hungry, who wants to be in the top, 2% within 5 years. Like that's the agent I want to work with. And so, so my mentorship is selective. Most of the people approach me and then I say, great, let's do it. Or I say, you know what, I'm probably not the guy for you, but I know somebody else that would be great. I have a person that I know who flips and does all of these Orange County kind of luxury tract homes in like Irvine, Costa Mesa, Newport Beach. Not like I couldn't even begin to tell you how to flip those things. It's not part of my business model. They have like 4 formulas and we take A and we install it here. We take B and we install it. I can't work like that. And there's nothing wrong with it. Actually, I'm envious sometimes because it's so much easier. I try not to repeat product if I can. I don't like to use the same lighting. I don't like to use the same tile. I don't like to use the same flooring. But after a while, obviously there's some repeat happening because there's only so much inventory out there. But that's kind of that's how I approach it. Yeah, with the mentorship.
So when it comes to building a team, right, it's about, how can you pass on what you do to the next person, delegating the task. I'm sure for what you do, it's probably really hard to duplicate yourself, right, in terms of what you just said.
I think, yes, there is. I think that for me, I don't want to create little like mini-me's, only because that's impossible. Like, no one's going to do it the same way. But what I can do is I can impress a level of standard that you have to have. I impress the amount of work that you have to dedicate. I introduce them to all of my vendors and I start creating relationships and cultivate that for them. Now, what they do with all of that afterward is on them. And some of them have soared and some of them have plummeted because they were just not wired that way. And that's okay. Not everybody is cut out to do this. In fact, most people are not cut out to do this. It's a great deal of anxiety and stress involved in it. You have to be the type of person that can separate that and not take it home and not, focus on all of it all the time. And that takes a very, very unique individual. Not many people can do that. So, yeah.
I can chat with you all day.
Yeah.
You've been such a great guest. I have one last question. How'd you move from doing craftsman type of building in Pasadena, old ones, transition to luxury flipping? Like, how did you get?
So that's a good question. So, luxury flipping can be done on any level. And you can do a luxury flip on a 1,200 square foot home, or you can do a luxury flip on a 5,000 square foot home, right? It just depends. So again, I think it's taking the old shell and restoring it, and then bringing in all of the luxury materials and finishes to finish it off. And that's where you can take a craftsman, or you can take a Spanish, you could take a mid-century, and you could take it down to the studs and bring it back up. When it's all drywalled and painted and nothing else is there, that could go one direction or another. It could be a super quick turn and burn, or it could be a really high-end, high-level installation. And that's up to the designer who's doing it. And I leave this, the last thing, because I have both hats that I wear. I would tell you that if you're a flipper and you don't have a design background, you better budget in a designer to be part of your team. Whether it's just consulting or you're actually having them go in and do an installation, but you have to have a designer behind you if you don't have any design background. Because flippers should not be making design choices. Just like a general contractor should not be making design choices. You're not a designer. Yeah. So you got to stay in your lane. Yeah. Yes.
Carmine, how can people find out more about you?
The best way to find out about me is you go on my social media. Go on my Instagram. It's Real Design Carmine. All one word, Real Design Carmine. That's really the best way. You'll see all of my real estate. You'll see all of my design, all my flips, pretty much everything.
Sounds good. Make sure to give them a follow, guys. That concludes this episode of The Real Estate Path. I'll see you guys next time.